I am concerned about the crew. After all, Ecco the Dolphin is not just a game, it is an adventure.
It's Janelle Waz, and no, Ecco the Dolphin is not the hardest game of the 90s. That's not to say it wasn't difficult, it certainly was. You're thrown into an ocean with untold horrors as you try to save your family from the clutches of aliens via a time machine located in the lost city of Atlantis. Yeah, I bet you didn't expect that from the deceptive box art. Oh sure, it's a cute little dolphin on the cover. What could possibly— oh my god! Heck, the sequel wasn't exactly a walk in the park either, but it was a hell of a lot more pleasant. But we've all seen the memes about the first game's difficulty, and the internet is full of players who gave up within the first couple of levels. Oh my dears, you have no idea what awaited you. The game was even difficult by design, programmed into the very being of the game. But the hardest game? Not even close. In fact, that's almost slanderous. I maintain that not only is Ecco not as hard of a game as it's made out to be, but that it has features built into it that give you a better chance of seeing the ending that other games from around that time simply don't have. Yes, there are far more frustrating games out there. Oh, don't even get me started on that level.
Have you had a chance to see the dolphins yet?
But before I go further, thanks for checking out my video. Make sure you like and subscribe for more of my Star Trek, video game, and other miscellaneous content. Keep those hailing frequencies open on the other social media sites, and a big thank you to my channel members for supporting the channel. If you'd like to buy me a cup of tea and support my work, consider joining up on my channel. Be great to have you aboard. For one thing, Ecco the Dolphin has solid controls. Okay, sure, some of the first game's physics left much to be desired. I swear, every time I try jumping across an island, I'm reminded of how much better the rubber dolphin physics of Tides of Time are. Because I should have been able to slide across that island! But the bulk of the game takes place underwater, where the controls are smooth and responsive. Ecco is agile, fast, perfect for getting around every hostile in the sea, and sneaking past the more stationary ones. If the controls are bad, you couldn't swim for that sweet breath of life-saving air in all those deep undersea caves. And the controls are pretty easy to pick up. So much so that you'll probably be comfortable enough zooming through the levels in no time. Though you don't always gotta go fast, you're not Sonic the Hedgehog. Listen, if you die during a level of Ecco, chances are the controls aren't the issue. Mostly. Now let's compare this to something like X-Men for the Sega Genesis. Look, I know I said I've never got into comic books. I know enough to know that Marvel and DC are different, and I have a cursory knowledge of various superheroes, but that's about it. But I played this one a lot growing up, so it'll always have a special place in my heart. But to this day, I can't even get past the second level. And upon playing it fairly recently, I'm pretty sure it's the controls. The characters are slow, I can't get close enough to attack enemies without getting hurt, and there are far too many enemies to deal with these controls. There's a good game here, and with better controls, I'd probably be able to see more of it. Not to mention, you can't even play it on easy if you want to play more than a couple of levels into it. But in Ecco, that's not a problem. I can easily defend myself against an ocean full of enemies or avoid them altogether, with some power-ups to make things a little easier. Huh, why are Ecco's superpowers more useful than the X-Men's? Probably because there's no limit to them. Step up your game, Professor X!
'Tis better to have loved and lost.
And sure, Ecco the Dolphin is full of complex cave systems, easy to get lost in on your own, but luckily, you're not gonna be on your own because the game gives you maps. No, not maps you have to look up in a manual. Though there is a game guide for Ecco the Dolphin Defender of the Future which has that. I'm talking in-game maps. And you can call one up at almost any time. Simply hold down the sonar button and boom, map. With your location clearly marked. Heck, Tides of Time gives you an even bigger map to work with. Yeah, the in-game maps for the original game are kinda small, but the fact that you can call up a map at any time is generous. And even more generous, you have enemies, glyphs, and the exit marked on the map. There doesn't have to be any surprises in Ecco the Dolphin. I'm getting to that! It's borderline impossible to be lost in really any of the Ecco games because you can easily access the tools that get you back on track. And sure, in-game maps aren't unique to Ecco the Dolphin, even with other games from around the same time. But some games would just straight up throw you into a complex maze and expect you to figure it out. You know what game I really could have used a map? This game! Come on guys, this is me talking. You knew Star Trek was gonna come up at some point. Though I'm not sure what gave you that impression. Look, Star Trek The Next Generation Echoes from the Past was my first exposure to Star Trek, and it does a good job delivering the Star Trek experience. But that doesn't excuse the frickin' mining moon! Oh yeah, aye, Captain. Let's beam down to a huge complex maze where you have to find every single trapped miner. There are 11 and the game doesn't tell you that. And it's spread out over 4 floors, 2 of which have a giant chasm where you have to find the right turbo lift to activate the bridge on only one of those floors. All without a map. Oh, and you have to return to this moon again and go through this fun house of totally not the Horda to mine for ore, which is also spread out over all 4 floors, and that only Geordi can see. Who the hell designed this place? Never mind that, who the hell expected players to figure all of this out without maps, in-game or manual? I mean, this came out in the 90s. The internet was still pretty limited in homes, and if you were lucky enough to have it, chances are there wasn't a walkthrough because the one kid who got through it didn't have the internet.
You're going surfing on the internet.
Look, say what you want about Ecco, but the game didn't make it that difficult for players. The fact that Ecco has in-game maps is not only generous for the time, but they make completing the levels a hell of a lot easier. But even with in-game maps, chances are Ecco will meet an untimely end at the hands of a shark, jellyfish, alien, or giant seahorse? Why is that the weirdest thing in this game? I mean, there's a giant DNA strand hanging out in the middle of the ocean, but that seahorse? That's a bridge too far! But the thing about Ecco the Dolphin is that as many times as you're gonna die in this game, you have an infinite number of lives, which allows you to keep trying until you get it right. You'll have to start the level all over again, or in the Sega CD version, at the last key glyph you sonar'd, a wonderful feature that makes the first game a much more pleasant experience. But you don't have to start the game all over again. Heck, paired with a password system, you don't even need to beat the game in one sitting. Take as much time as you need. And with Ecco, you have plenty of it.
This is no time to argue about time. We don't have the time.
Compare that to other games for around that time that give you 3 lives and maybe a continue, and once you run out, that's it. You have to start over from the beginning. I still haven't beaten Sonic 1 or 2 after all these years. Although that save feature in Sonic 3 finally allowed me to beat that game. Again, I know features like password systems aren't unique to Ecco, but they turn a game that would have been otherwise impossible to simply brutal and unforgiving, but still thoroughly doable. With the determination of Rocky Balboa and the patience of a saint, you too can best this game. Oh, right. I suppose I should address the last 3 levels because up to that point, Ecco the Dolphin isn't the nearly impossible game it was made out to be. Everything I mentioned in this video makes the game challenging, but still a thoroughly doable experience. Then you hit the last 3 levels and all hell breaks loose. Now you're faced with 2 auto-scrolling levels, one of which is the infamous Welcome to the Machine level, a nearly 7-minute long level that's impossible to speedrun, and if you die during any part of it, which is very easy to do, you have to start over from the beginning. Plus the final boss that you only get the password for after you beat the game, and that if you die during any part of that fight, you have to repeat Welcome to the Machine all over again. In-game maps, useless. Fast controls, well, they can get you out of tight spots here and there, but you're at the mercy of the level's speed. The game stops being challenging at this point and becomes insanity-inducing. And the soundtrack doesn't help either. Over and over again, repeating the same levels, maybe even for a couple of hours. But the fact still remains. You're allowed to keep trying as many times as your patience and sanity allows. Heck, write down the password and come back to it later. Again, not every 90s game does this. Does Sonic the Hedgehog care if you spent the last hour playing the game only to run out of lives and continues? No. Do the X-Men? Heck, they don't even care if you lose all your players. Yes, the final stretch of Ecco might rank among some of the hardest levels I've ever played. You'll be driven to borderline insanity trying to get through it. You'll feel like giving up when you're a couple of hits away from saving your pod, only to die and get shot back to Welcome to the Machine. And it can be absolutely soul-crushing. However, you still stand more of a chance of saving Ecco's pod and returning to Earth to happily jump alongside your pod, finding yourself ranked among the giants who've also succeeded, than a lot of other 90s games. Yes! I did it! Guys, I did it! But that's all I have for right now. What do you think? Is Ecco the hardest game of the 90s, or is the meme a bit of an exaggeration? Have you beaten the game yourself? Is there another 90s game you think is harder? And what are some of your favorite challenging games? Please leave comments below and discuss. As always, thanks for tuning in to another video. If you like what you see, why not give my video a like and subscribe to my channel? Tell your friends. Until next time.
Have you had a chance to see the dolphins yet?